Thank you so much for having me, Rupert. I'm excited to be here. My name is Annelise Osborne. I'm the Chief Business Officer at Kadena, which is a Layer 1 proof-of-work blockchain. And I also have just written a book that is launching tomorrow here at Consensus called From Hoodies to Suits, Innovating Digital Assets for Traditional Finance. I've been in the space since 2018. I'm really interested in working to help upgrade finance. I don't think that it's broken, but I think there's ways that it can become much more efficient. And to do that, I think we need solid tech and we need to understand regulation, and I'd love to talk about it more.
So, how do you anticipate your upcoming book, From Hoodies to Suites, Innovating Digital Assets for Traditional Finance, will influence the blockchain and traditional finance industries?
Sure. So having been in the space since 2018, when I learned about blockchain and what it can do, I was really focused on how to implement that and how to get adoption within regular capital markets. And because I think there's a lot of things that we will eventually not realize are blockchain behind the scenes, but will be much more efficient. We'll have opportunities to reduce costs and ideally invest in new types of products. And so I wrote this because I believe a lot of people still in the financial world, also in the corporate world, don't understand the difference between Bitcoin and blockchain. And a lot of times I'll say blockchain and they'll think crypto. And so yes, there is a world of crypto. You can't negate all of that. The hoodies, as I call them, and in my book, the hoodies are really the tech and the entrepreneurs, and the suits are really the more regulated corporate financial types of people that have worked in regulations. So the hoodies have created this amazing financial product that it's I think about 2.6 trillion. It goes up and down from a market value perspective, so you can't just credit that. But my goal is how do we implement that technology for capital markets in Wall Street? And I think the book will be a good tool for people to learn more about it and understand the differences and understand what it means to them and why we're doing or why institutions are now doing it. Now that you have, BlackRock in the fray, you've got the ETF for both Bitcoin and Ethereum approved, and multiple people creating tokenized funds, tokenized debt in different parts of the world. So my goal of the book is education.
That's great. What new business initiatives and partnerships are you focusing on to drive Kadena's growth within the Web3 ecosystem?
So I have just joined Kadena, which is fantastic tech. The two founders were from JP Morgan. One had previously worked at Apple and the other at the SEC. So it was created really for financial markets with security and scalability in mind, taking the best from both Bitcoin and Ethereum. And my goal there is it hasn't actually been focused on capital markets and settlement, which is what it was built for. So it's really been focused more on creating innovative technology and working with different development projects for holders of KDA, which is the utility coin. And so my goal is to work on building adoption within the financial markets to actually have more people building on our chain.
What role do you see Kadena play in the development and adoption of regulated digital assets?
I think there will be a shift or an expansion in building out on proof of work. Ethereum was proof of work, but now it is proof of stake. I think there's a lot of benefits that proof of work can bring to the ecosystem. I think we see that in Bitcoin as being very secure. It's not as scalable, efficient, not programmable, and not as fast. That's where Ethereum comes in. So we've worked on combining those together. So I do think that we will have a lot of interest. Now we're just about to launch into the financial world more now, but I believe this time next year we'll have a lot more to talk about having institutional adoption within Kadena and having more building.
What are the key trends in digital assets and blockchain technology that you believe will shape the future of finance?
I think that DeFi has created a different approach to finance. There's fewer intermediaries. There's more power in the individual. I think that this technology allows for that. And if you think about the Bitcoin white paper in 2008, when it was launched, that was right around Occupy Wall Street time or anti-bank. But I do recognize there's a lot of benefits for the banks. But one thing that has to be thought about from a bank investment perspective and a wealth management perspective is ownership of that collateral. So the bank today, people put money in the bank and the bank lends out against that money. Today, if I'm holding my own tokens or my own coins, I can then lend out. And so I think that people being companies need to think about how to incorporate into their business plan, because the upcoming generations are going to demand more digital opportunities. So I do think that that aspect of DeFi will merge with traditional finance a bit. I also think that you'll have more will be tokenized, and the collateral of that tokenization can be used as collateral for other types of lending. And it will also offer opportunities for more types of investments for you and me, right? The average retail investor, as opposed to just institutions, which is why all the companies are tokenizing funds now, is because it allows to expand the investor base.
I think it's quite interesting to see how the barriers of entries are being lowered and more people are getting able to participate. But even for those that are already investing, it's interesting to have more access to more exotic alternatives. What are some of the most promising use cases for tokenization of assets that you see in developing on the Kadena platform?
So I think one of the most important is stablecoin, so that there's actually a coin for settlement. I think that so there's a goal there. Also, tokenization of funds, which allows access at lower buy-in points and allows the technology is a less heavy lift to bring people into the fund, so it allows more people to engage in that fund. So we see that. I have always been a supporter of tokenized debt. I think a lot is happening in Europe and different parts outside the United States with tokenized debt now, so that would be great to see. And really the expansion of alternative investments, right? If you look at what, there's half as many public companies as there were in Y2K, and there's more private companies and private investments. And I think tokenization will help enter that market and will allow more opportunities for us to invest.
That's great. I'm going to pivot a little bit now to some more general questions. Can you share your perspectives on the most significant developments in the blockchain space over the last year?
I think that it would have to be the institutional push. I'm a big believer that it's a kind of a top-down approach. There's institutions move so much money, and if the institutional rails are in place, it will be more efficient for retail rails to be in place. And so I think PayPal USD coming out with a stablecoin, the idea of a company that has 426 million wallets already, or accounts already. I think it's the ETFs being approved by the SEC and the recognition that these are a new asset class, which gives people the opportunity to invest, or companies the opportunity to invest in this asset class in a traditional wrapper, so they don't have to create a wallet. They can do it through their typical brokers. And then I think BlackRock and Franklin Templeton continuing to tokenize funds, and BlackRock being the largest asset manager in the world, having a tokenized fund, I think is a huge eye opener. I think the push was not to be a leader, but really to be a follower, but recognizing the benefit here as if they weren't the first, that they see the benefits of tokenization. So I think those were all amazing things that have taken place within the year for institutional adoption.
How do you see the role of traditional finance institutions evolving with the rise of decentralized finance and blockchain technologies?
So I mentioned that a bit earlier, how I think a TradFi and DeFi will merge in certain ways. If you look at the world of private credit, I think certain companies are coming out with offerings to enter the private credit market. I think it allows investors to be the bank or be the lenders as well when they invest. It gets more of a broad scale adoption of the DeFi TradFi merging. I think companies are going to have to pay attention to that because otherwise they're going to miss out on value. So I think people will have to understand how to capture it with what they have already. So that's probably the biggest DeFi TradFi merging that I think I see happening. It'll be interesting to see how that develops in the next few years.
Yeah. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing the adoption of blockchain technology, and how can the industry overcome them?
I would say it's three. First, education. And so that's really what I wrote this book for. And it's really education for both people within finance, but also regulators and legislatures, which leads to number two. I think we need clear, defined regulation. It is very difficult to regulate innovation without over-regulating or under-regulating. So I think that's working together with the regulators and with the legislators to create regulation that makes sense. And then third, it's really interoperability, and it's tying banks and financial institutions have old tech. No way around it. There's old tech. And so it's working to upgrade that tech and have that tech operate with different chains.
And how do you envision the future of Web3, and what impact do you think it will have on the internet as we know it?
I love Chris Dixon's book, which opened my eyes about really the internet and Web3 and the similarities. I hadn't really thought about that before. I had thought about how AI is like a big Google browser, kind of, if you type it in and it come up with content. I think from Web3 being the transfer of value, right, with all the value that has been created, I guess I look at it a little bit different. You know, I'm really focused on how do we upgrade the rails that are today, but I do think it's going to lead to a very different idea of finance. And so I don't know the exactly Web 2 version of finance that it will lead to, but Web 2 I see information and data. Obviously that's very important, but I think that we'll have much more efficient lives. I also think we're going to see some big winners from the Web3 space. If you look at the top data companies in the world, number one is IBM, and you have both Google and Amazon in there who are Web2 companies, and neither of them have a main business of data. So I feel like we're going to find real opportunities in some of these Web3 companies that actually grow significantly.
Yeah. What advice would you give to new entrepreneurs entering a blockchain and crypto space today?
I would read and read and read. I think there's a lot of information out there that it's good to absorb and see what other people are doing, to learn from other people's mistakes. I also think that you have to believe and trust in yourself. And if people tell me no all the time, and it drives me to go further. So don't be afraid of people telling you no. You have to be resilient. So those would be my two pieces of advice.
Thank you.